There are moments in public life when emotion slips through carefully built walls, and the audience doesn't immediately realize what they've witnessed. A woman sits on her talk show set, smiling at the camera, speaking with warmth as she always does. Then, unexpectedly, her voice cracks. Not from humor or performance, but from something deeper that can no longer be contained. It looks subtle on screen, almost ordinary, yet it carries the weight of years behind it. What viewers saw was not just a presenter being emotional, but a human being carrying the collapse of a private world beneath public composure. The life behind the laughter. 100 words. For years, her public image was built on openness, humor, and resilience. She appeared as someone who could sing through pain and smile through pressure. But behind that visibility was a life tightly interwoven with marriage, business, and family. Her husband was not only a partner in life, but also deeply involved in her professional world. Every decision, every contract, every schedule carried shared influence. Over time, that closeness became something harder to untangle than anyone outside could see. When a relationship becomes the center of both emotional and structural life, its cracks do not stay private for long. When the foundation begins to split, 100 words. The breakdown did not arrive as a dramatic public explosion, but as a slow, emotional distance that grew inside silence. Two people who once built a shared world began to move around each other differently. Conversations became shorter, pauses longer, and certainty faded into uncertainty. In relationships like this, silence often speaks louder than conflict, signaling not resolution, but distance. Eventually, the connection that once felt like permanence began to feel fragile. When she later stepped toward divorce, it was not just the end of a marriage, but the unraveling of an entire structure she had trusted to hold her life together. The weight of divorce in the public eye, 100 words. When the separation became public, it carried layers that extended far beyond headlines. There were legal complexities, financial discussions, and emotional negotiations happening all at once. But beneath those visible details was something quieter and heavier, disappointment in a future that no longer existed. She had believed in permanence, in vows that meant stability, and in a shared life that would last. The realization that it would not continue reshaped how she saw both love and trust. Even as she continued her professional commitments, fans noticed subtle changes in tone, expression, and presence, as if something inside her was recalibrating in real time. Another story of collapse and silence, 100 words. Years earlier, another artist had experienced a similar kind of unraveling. A country music star, known for powerful performances and a high-profile relationship, faced the end of his marriage in a way that surprised the public. What had appeared strong from the outside ended quietly, leaving behind questions and emotional fallout. In the aftermath, he spoke about confusion, isolation, and losing a sense of identity that had been tied to partnership. The silence that followed was not emptiness alone, but reflection. He found himself rebuilding from a place where certainty once existed, learning how to exist without the life he had known. When two broken stories cross paths, 100 words. Later, within the same professional world, two people carrying similar emotional histories found themselves in shared spaces. They were not brought together by romance, but by experience. Both understood what it meant to continue working while processing personal collapse. In that environment, recognition matters more than words. A glance, a conversation, or shared silence can signal understanding. Each had walked through versions of heartbreak that altered their sense of self, yet their journeys remained separate, shaped by different choices and circumstances. What connected them was not timing or destiny, but the recognition of survival after emotional disruption and public vulnerability. Another mirror in a different story, 100 words. Around the same time, another well-known singer was facing the end of a long marriage. After more than a decade together and a shared family life, separation arrived with its own emotional weight. She described feeling as if the structure of her life had been deeply shaken. Entering professional environments during that period required strength that often masked inner struggle. Yet within that space, she encountered someone else also navigating personal loss. Their connection grew slowly, not from dramatic beginnings, but from shared understanding of grief, identity loss, and rebuilding. It was not escape from pain, but acknowledgement of it between two people learning to stand again. The contrast of solitary rebuilding. 100 words. While some people find comfort in shared healing, others face reconstruction alone. In this story, one path included companionship through similar emotional storms, while another unfolded in solitude. Raising children, maintaining a career, and managing personal change required internal strength without a mirrored counterpart. There was no parallel romantic narrative waiting to soften the transition. Instead, rebuilding happened quietly, through daily decisions and personal accountability. Pain did not disappear through connection. It had to be processed individually. That difference shaped not only the recovery process, but also the identity that emerged afterward, formed through resilience rather than reflection in another person's experience. Becoming someone new without permission. 100 words. Rebuilding after emotional collapse is not about returning to a previous version of life, but about constructing something entirely different. The process involves questioning long-held beliefs about love, identity, and stability. Over time, what once felt like loss begins to transform into understanding. Strength does not arrive all at once. It develops through repetition, responsibility, and acceptance. There is a shift from seeking external validation to trusting internal direction. The person who emerges is not defined by the relationship that ended, but by the decisions made afterward. Growth becomes less about recovery and more about rediscovery of self without external definition. Conclusion: what strength looks like. After everything, 100 words. Stories like these rarely end in simple answers. Some people rebuild alongside others who understand their pain, while others do so alone, step by step, without visible support systems. Both paths require courage, though they look different from the outside. What remains consistent is transformation. A voice that once cracked in vulnerability becomes part of a larger story of endurance. Strength is not the absence of breakdown, but the ability to continue afterward. Whether alone or accompanied, rebuilding reshapes identity in irreversible ways. And in that process, people often discover that survival itself becomes the beginning of something entirely new and deeply personal.